welcome back to Finding Jesus, where we are finding Jesus in everyday life. Now, there's no better place for us to find Jesus than by opening Scripture. And so these Fridays we're taking and we're calling them Friday favorites. I'm talking about my favorite women in the Bible, not necessarily because they were good or bad or they were heroes of the faith, but because I feel like we can learn something from them. And so last week we talked about Eve, the very first woman. It didn't take us very long into the Bible to find a woman that we could learn from her mistakes and her shortcomings. Well, we're still in the book of Genesis. We're just going straight through the Old Testament right now. And the next woman that I want to talk about in Genesis actually comes in chapter 15. So, you've probably heard the story of Abraham. Father Abraham had many sons. That's that song that we learned when we were kids and we did the motions with it. Well, Abraham was given a promise. God met Abraham and said, I'm going to make you a father of many nations. In fact, you'll have so many children that you couldn't even count them. They'd be more than the stars in the sky, more than the sands on the seashore. But Abraham and his wife Sarah got a little bit rushed and they took that promise into their own hands because it seemed like an impossible situation. Now, we'll talk about Sarah next week, but I actually want to talk about a different woman that I think we can learn from, and that's Hagar. So Hagar was Sarah's servant. She served Sarah, she worked under her, and she was much younger. So when God gave this promise to Abraham and Sarah was like, look, there's no way I'm going to be able to have children. So here, just take my maid, take Hagar and have children with her. It's a terrible idea, but I guess in those days that wasn't super uncommon. And so Abraham, I don't know what men were like then, but he was like, yeah, sure, I'll take the younger Hagar and I'll have a child with her. Well, what happened was she was pregnant. She became pregnant with a son, Ishmael, and Sarah resented her. Sarah actually went to her husband. How many of us saw this coming? I knew this wasn't going to work out well. So Sarah goes to Abraham and she's like, now she's bragging, she's carrying your child and she treats me differently now. Everything's worse. Why did we do this? This was a terrible idea. Of course it was. And so Hagar actually ran away. It says that she ran away into the wilderness. And I'm going to pick up in chapter 16 and read a little bit of scripture to you. So the angel of the Lord found her, Hagar, by a spring in the wilderness, the spring on the way to Shur. And he said, Hagar, slave of Sarai, where have you come from and where are you going? She replied, I'm running away from my mistress, Sarah. Sorry, I should have said that. Sarai, different pronunciations. But the angel of the Lord said to her, to Hagar, go back to your mistress and submit to her authority. The angel of the Lord said to her, I will greatly multiply your offspring, and they will be too many to count. The angel of the Lord said to her, you have conceived and will have a son. You will name him Ishmael, for the Lord has heard your cry of affliction. This man will be like a wild donkey. His hand will be against everyone, and everyone's hand will be against him. He will settle near all his relatives. So she, Hagar, named the Lord who spoke to her, you are El Roi, for she said, in this place have I actually seen the one who sees me. So Hagar actually encountered God in the wilderness after she was running away from her circumstance and received this beautiful promise that even though they weren't Abraham's initial plan, it wasn't the way the promise was supposed to be fulfilled, God said, I'll actually make your son a father of many nations as well. You'll have multiple descendants. And I think that what we can learn from this is that no matter what hardships we've been through or what circumstances we're put in, even if it wasn't even our fault, because if you think about it, Hagar was just following orders. She's not the one who came up with this idea to be with Abraham and to have a child with Abraham. She was obeying orders essentially. So even if we're in life situations that we didn't really ask for or we didn't plan for, we're just kind of at the whims of other people and bad things are happening to us, I'm so encouraged by what she called God because she said, you are El Roi, the God who sees me. So no matter what kind of injustice or hardship you might be facing right now, I just want to encourage you that there is a God who sees you and cares for you and loves you deeply. And even if you are in that wilderness season where you feel like, God, I don't even know how I got to this place, but this is just awful, know that there are promises that God has for you, and a lot of them you can find right here in Scripture. So I just would like to know, What do you call God in this season? Hagar called him El Roy, the God who sees me. Right now, my family is in a season where we are really relying on God as Jehovah Jireh, our provider, the God who provides. So if you know some of the names of God, would you drop those in the comments below and let me know who is God to you in this season? Or if this God stuff is kind of unfamiliar to you, I'm curious what you have to say. What do you think of when you think of God? I'm so glad that you've been here with me. I love spending this time with you for our Friday favorites, and we'll see you next time. Have a good one.